to order the meeting for the budget presentation. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Kivett.
Thank you. This time, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lee for our invocation.
Let every heart pray. Almighty and all-wise God, we just want to thank you for allowing us to be here on this day. We ask that you help us, oh God, to make the decisions that's going to be right, fair, and equal for all the citizens of Sampson County. We thank you for your many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for allowing everyone that's here to be here. Keep us throughout this day and every day, God, and we'll give your name the honor and the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Lee. If you will, if all stand, we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You made it just in time. Sorry for a rude interruption.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our county manager. Good morning,
Good morning.
and thank you for all the hard work that you do. It is much appreciated.
I will be using cough drops at times this morning, and I apologize in advance for that lack of professionalism, but I'll never get through this if I do not. Mrs. Holder over here is on standby in case I just get to the point I can't talk. She's going to come up and finish this for me. I'll tell you two things as I'm getting started this morning. Number one, if my goal was to win a popularity contest, this would not be the presentation that I would be making. Secondly, I normally don't prefer not to have my back to the department heads, but be that as it may, we will just persevere and go ahead. You have two documents before you. One is the budget message and one is a historical perspective regarding the budget. I'm not going to spend any time on the historical, perspective, but I invite you to look at that at your leisure time for your own perusal. I think what you may find interesting in the historical perspective is you're getting the perspective from somebody that, from a financing standpoint, worked with the county for 10 years before they came in as county manager, and then you see the view of somebody as county manager as they looked at the budget. So for whatever value that has, it may help you as you gain your perspective on this. I am going to start with the budget message, and I would tell you that everybody, including the department heads, have worked hard on what they have put together. Mr. Clack gets exceptional notes for all of the work that he does, and generally I would tell you that when we start the budget process, by the time we get to this point, we do not like one another, okay? We have already this year gone to that point and come back where now we're on somewhat pretty good terminology, so we have passed through the maze and come out. So if you will look at the budget message, and it's dated May 23rd. You will note as I started this, I quoted the first paragraph from my 2012 budget message. And in that message, I stated that I was more concerned about budgets 10 years down the road than I was in 2012. And so therefore, I thought I would include that. If you'll come down about midway of the introduction, I have stated numerous times over the last year that I'm much more concerned about future budgets 10 years out and beyond than I am the current budget, and that is a true statement. If we choose to simply make decisions regarding the current period without taking a longer-term view, our budgeting process is simple and we can move through the process easily. However, electing to build a framework upon which long-term decisions can be made still gives you the flexibility to adjust as we move forward. More importantly, it adds to cost efficiencies to the decisions that are made in the short term. Fortunately, the BOC chose to begin building the framework to cover the long-term needs. A good effort was made to begin building the reserves needed to maintain the physical infrastructure for both the county and schools. Similarly, a significant effort was made to improve the salaries for our human infrastructure, and a 4-year implementation plan was adopted. Unfortunately, this plan was behind by the time the implementation period was completed. Sampson County government has continued to work diligently to support our county by improving conditions for our workforce despite the challenges of high inflation and supply chain that everyone has experienced during the past year. Given these bold initiatives and significant accomplishments, we found ourselves starting this year's budget development process with fixed increased expenditures of $2,409,290. I'm talking about expenditures that have been approved that were not included in last year's budget. So going into this process, we knew we had something to make up. And our increased revenues are $2,432,844. If you will flip over to your last page, you will see the Exhibit A. And what we have done is we have detailed the projected revenue increases totaling $2,432,844. And then we've detailed the fixed expenditures that we've either elected to use or either has been put upon us by state mandates or whatever it would be. And those total $2,409,290. So you can see we have about $30,000 to cover all of the inflation and everything else that we need to consider going forward, and that's quite a challenge. Going back to page 2, please also note that we have already reduced departmental requests by $6,898,792. We do not believe that we can further significantly reduce projected cost without adversely affecting programs. We do recognize that there are several items that could be deferred. However, we do not recommend this consideration for the following reasons, and I left out the most important sentence up at the end of the paragraph. Therefore, because of all of the things we have just discovered, we're recommending a tax increase of 5 cents. And we do not recommend this. We recommend this request, and we give you the following things that causes us concern. Number one, some of our budgeted increases are being expended now. Thus, it is most likely that our general fund balance will reflect a decrease at the end of the year. We do not believe that inflation will be controlled during the next year. This will continue to affect the price of goods and services. Number 3, supply chain issues continue to exist and may increase. These will also continue to affect the price of goods and services. We still have a challenge with employee compensation. The CPI will necessitate additional cost of living adjustments moving forward, regardless of any pay study. Number 5, if we choose to defer capital reserve deposits, we will revisit the challenges of pent-up needs the county has struggled with for many years and is not completely resolved, and will further exacerbate our cash flow challenges moving forward. We continue to be concerned about inept federal government fiscal policies. And in this day and time, everybody understands inflation. When somebody comes out and tells you that they can invest $5 trillion and tamp down inflation, I think basic economics have just been missed. With a declining population, it is unlikely that we will receive continued significant increases in sales tax. In just a second. Significant accomplishments during the year. I invite you to look over to page 3, and I'm going to summarize the salary adjustments. Number 1, all employees have received at least a 12.1% increase in salary during the year. Detention officers have received a minimum pay raise of 17.1% raise during this same period. And three, the percentage of the increase for many employees is even greater when the $675,000 mentioned above is factored in. We received ARP funding, number two, in the amount of $12,340,000. $8 million has been designated for water system improvements, $2 million for broadband improvements, and $2,340,000 for contingency, and we did take the 2.1% raise out of that money back in the year. I commend the board for your broad thinking and insight relative to the ARP money, because I think investing in infrastructure, things that will give us a long-term return, is to everybody's advantage. We've also received significant infrastructure funding. $1.7 million for water system improvements, $3.5 million for the new emergency services building, $2 million for the emergency service storage, $1 million for storage for the sheriff's department, $1.1 million for benefits that primarily go to the fire and rescue services, and $9 million for additional water system improvements. Now to talk about budget highlights. Number one, our audit balance at the end of last year increased over the previous year by $3 million, and you should pat yourself on the back for that. Number two, our net tax evaluation is $5,092,759,879. We are projecting a 97% collection rate for this proposed budget. We're building, as everyone knows, and as everyone is very proud, a new emergency services facility. With the $3.5 million that we got as a grant to go toward this facility, the grants going into this project now total 73% of the total project costs. Again, I think this is something for which everyone can be extremely proud. Economic development, number four, continues to be an area of emphasis. And when we talk about the budget and some of the woes that we would have, I would say that the emphasis on economic development is spot on. I'm reminded of the little boy that was walking halfway through the woods, and he got halfway in and he got tired. And so he had a decision to make. Was he going to turn around and walk back out the way he came in, or was he going to go on out to the other side and finish what he started? But we mentioned in number four several of the economic successes that we've had. Mr. Barrington and his team should receive a lot of accolades for what they have done, as well as the board and everyone else who has worked with them. County leaders have invested in land acquisition for non-residential development. The county currently has an option agreement for $2 million to purchase 210 acres off I-40 in Newton Grove, and we are currently doing due diligence regarding this property. The county also has received a $262,000 grant from the Southeast Partnership to assist with product development. Our public water system, Mr. Reynolds continues to tell me he doesn't have much to do, and he is always looking for new opportunities to get out and get busy. He tells me that idle time amongst his staff creates negativity, so he is doing everything that he can to keep his entire staff engaged. The customer base for our water system now stands at 6,386, with 196 services since July of 21. 293 manual read meters have been converted to the new radio read technology. The previously listed federal and state grant funding will enhance our opportunity to expand water services to unserved areas. The Oak Grove Church Road project needed for Johnson County Incarnation Phase 2 should be completed by the end of September. The I-40 North Carolina 403 well project is still under construction. The iron and manganese treatment system project is scheduled to be completed in January of 2023. Additional applications for funding have been submitted for a Keener supply well and several water main extensions. We have just recently submitted a grant application for the underserved Ivanhoe community. Environmental health. Environmental health has been an area that has had its challenges in the last several years, particularly due to the changeover of staff, retirements, and people just choosing to move on. At one time, we had only one experienced staff members out of 7 positions. We now have filled all but one permanent position. In order to ensure continued improvement in our customer service, the Board of Commissioners authorized one additional intern position at the February Planning Conference. This gives us a total of 8 positions in environmental health. If you indulge me for about 10 seconds. Budget drivers. Sales tax, we are projecting an increase in sales tax revenue of $1 million. The county has done well in the last several years with our sales tax revenues. I think I can also speak for Mr. Clack. We're concerned whether this trend is going to continue the way it has in the past because of the declining population we've got in the county and the lack of money coming in. Number 2, property tax collections are expected to increase by $2,640,500. That's primarily because of the 5-cent tax increase. We are projecting a collection rate of 97%. The tax office staff continues to do a good job of servicing our tax base. Fund balance appropriated, we are appropriating approximately $1,943,300 to balance the budget. But we anticipate that lapsed salaries and benefits will negate the need to spend a significant amount of this appropriation. This is something that we use as a budgetary item primarily because we know that there's going to be lapsed salaries and that money, so much of that money will not be utilized. Otherwise, we would have a tax rate that is higher. And if you recall, last year, we increased the general fund with about $3 million, even though we had projected an appropriation. Lawsuit, we have included $100,000 to defend against the lawsuit filed by 34 current and former Sheriff's Department employees, and that will be ongoing and probably picking up steam during this next year. COLAs and market study, and when the department heads receive their copy of this, I would particularly call their reference to number 5, amongst other things. And I do apologize. Number 5, COLAs and market study. The BOC approved an additional 5% pay increase for all employees to take effect this past January. At the same time, the board voted to not consider another COLA or pay increase until after the market study stated to begin in July 2022 is completed, and none of that is included in this year's budget. This action was taken before a potential 5-cent tax increase was proposed. Likewise, if the BOC has concerns about the cost of the full implementation of the proposed market study, it is recommended that this market study be delayed for 1 year, delayed or deferred. When we recommended the 2.1% bonus payment to be paid last year, this bonus would have put us even with inflation through 2020. Our initial goal was to include the 2.1% COLA in this year's budget to have us even with cost of living increases with the exception of 2021. The BOC did approve a 5% raise as previously referenced in January of 2022. Technically, we were nearly behind 3% ahead of the CPI of 7.5% was determined for 2021. Based on CPIs and not counting this year, we are now behind on CPIs of about 4.5%. Health insurance. The county's portion of the increased cost of health insurance will amount to approximately $250,000 this year. This equates to $40 per month per employee. Since 2019, the county's share of employee health insurance has risen from $734 per month to the current $885 per month per employee. This is nearly $1 million of increased cost to the county in 5 years. So there's where costs begin to nibble away at us here and there. We had previously advised employees, and again, I think this is important, and this is a credit to the human resources staff and Dave and those that have worked on our insurance. We had previously advised employees that their health insurance costs will be increasing by 20% in August. Effective with the August 1st, 2022 benefits renewal, Sampson County will offer a new health plan with no change to premiums. The plan has higher deductibles, out-of-pocket costs, and co-pays. This plan is modeled after the North Carolina State plan. All employees will be enrolled in this plan. They will then have the option to buy up to the current plan for which they are currently enrolled. Okay, so we are trying to create a circumstance where the employees do have more options to choose. So the 20% increase that we're talking about then comes into effect only if we're buying up to the existing plan. There will be mandatory open enrollment meetings in June with all employees to discuss their options in details as well as costs. Capital outlay funding for public schools. Our city school system has requested $485,000 in capital outlay funding, and the county schools has requested $2,430,000. We are projecting $1,425,000 to be available from the annual sales tax received and designated for school capital outlay projects. Therefore, the projection for the city schools will be $385,000, and the county schools will be $1,039,110. Current expense for the public schools. The county school system has requested an additional $438,261 for current annual operating expenses, and the city schools has requested an additional $294,516 for current annual operating expenses. We are required to fund both school systems at the same student rate. Using our basic budgeting techniques of ensuring proportional funding for the operations expense based on current general revenues, we are projecting available funding in the amount of $516,345. We are proposing to increase funding to the county schools by $383,969 and the city schools by $132,376. The Sampson Community College. We've increased their funding by $81,025 when we tried to use a similar forward and measured against what we're doing for the schools and come out with the best we can. We have also included $250,000 for capital outlay, and that's something we have been doing for the last several years. Contingency. We have budgeted $380,910 for contingency. Two of the things that we did not include in the budget was, number one, if there happens to be a second runoff elections, and at the time we were putting a lot of this together, we didn't have a lot of information. Secondly, we have been talking about some information or about doing some new software for environmental health and inspections. We had hoped to do that this past year, but with things that we're trying to transition, we have not. So that may be something that, even though it's not included in the budget, we might come back, Mr. Kidd, at some time during the year and ask for that software package. Detention Center and Sheriff's Department. Operating expenses for the Detention Center and Sheriff's Department are $4,885,805 and $9,506,848 respectively. The total budget for the Sheriff's Department, including detention, is $14,392,653. The combined proposed expenditures for the departments have increased $894,333 since last year. They do have projected revenues of $3,330,780. Last year, we reported that their total expenditures had increased 62% over the last 10 years. We applaud the department for their willingness to enter into a contract to house federal prisoners. Unfortunately, We are projecting $336,891 less in the proposed federal contract than last year. All departments should be very proud of their efforts and accomplishments in generating revenue. In any department that generates revenue, we do not want to take those contributions lightly. Everybody should be applauded, whether it's as little as $10,000 or as much as $3 million. Relative to the net cost of operating the detention center and sheriff's office, the net tax support to operate their operations is $11,061,873. The total amount of tax support increases significantly when the debt service for the building is included. This is more tax support received than any department, including each of the school systems and the community college. The citizens of Sampson County can be very proud of law enforcement and the county's exceptional effort to support them. Looking back, I'm also very proud of the county and USDA's efforts to previously provide $9,500,000 of funding for their new facility. USDA also provided an additional $1,500,000 of funding to provide an extra pod to plan for growth and the possibility to garner additional revenue by housing out-of-county prisoners. This strategy, dating back more than 15 years to generate revenue to reduce tax support, was most insightful. This year, the county administration initiated the request to the state for an additional $1 million for storage for the sheriff's office. Our goal is to assist all departments and funding partners. It is anticipating that this facility will be online during the next year. As a side note, there are only two departments that operate without tax support, and that is the public water system and transportation. Department of Social Services, we are projecting an increase in DSS operational cost of $450,000. Much of this cost can be attributed to personnel. The original budget reflected an increase of $1.5 million. However, the interim directors work closely with staff to reduce this increase. However, DSS continues to face challenges with the needs for several programs. For example, we have a number of challenges with the number of children in foster care. These numbers have increased, as well as the availability of care for those children with special needs. This is an area that will be needed to monitor very closely. Some of these challenges will create budget needs that cannot be clearly identified and completely controlled. The budget does include 2 vehicles. Relative to the needs of DSS, Madam Chair, I would be pleasantly surprised if we do not have further discussions on some of the needs, especially with foster care sometime during the year. Health Department. The budget for the Health Department increased by $178,000. Most of this can be attributed to salaries. Their budget also includes 2 vehicles. Cooperative Extension. Their budget has increased $77,773. Of the extension budget, $78,000 is allocated for beaver management. This line item has increased significantly over the last 2 years due to continued challenges beavers are presented for our rural communities. We are including $6,000 to participate in the state program and $72,000 included for 1 full-time contracted position. There is good news in this. Our extension director, Mr. Brad Hardison, is now affectionately called the Beaver by his colleagues, employees, and others. So anybody that has not picked up their name, please refer to Brad as the Beaver and move it on forward. Rescue. The projected rescue budget is $7,164,952. The budget includes the 3 new ambulances and 6 additional paramedics that were approved last fall. The 6 paramedics and essentially ambulance, we normally do 2, so I'm not saying you approved the 3 at that time. The budget also includes an assistant EMS operations chief. Fire departments. The fire departments have requested increases, 3 fire departments have requested increases in their fire tax. The Fire Commission has recommended increases for Plainview and Faison. They did not recommend an increase for the Garland Fire Department. We recommend that the Board Commission adopt the recommendations of the Fire Commission. Communications. Their budget is $1,464,076. This does include 4 new telecommunicators. Aging, we mentioned with a $100,000 increase. Expo Center, the general fund contribution to the Expo Center is $426,124, and we all understand what they have faced over the last several years. Revaluation, we are budgeting $122,000 toward the next revaluation. Special appropriations, basically, we are only funding what we have funded in the last several years. I think there were 3 new requests or 4, Susan, and we did not include any of those in the budget. Debt service vehicles is in the recommended budget. We are proposing to replace 16 sheriff vehicles, 2 ambulances, 1 truck for inspections, and 1 QRV for EMS. All vehicle requests in the sheriff's department budget have been changed to cars. Ms. Gibbett, I'm either pausing to make sure y'all have caught up with me, or I'm trying to catch my breath. You can pick whichever one.
We're trying to catch our breath.
Is EMS on standby?
Retirement system contributions. These are the little things that keep nipping at us. They're important and we have to do them, but it does create challenges for our financial fiscal responsibility. The county's contribution for our share of the regular employees' retirement system will increase, going from 11.4% for all employees except law enforcement to 12.14%. The rate for law enforcement will rise to 13.04 from 12.04. The county is part of the local government retirement system. The rates that we pay on employees' gross salaries are set annually by the state. And one of the things our human resources people have been trying to do is they actually now, on an annual basis, sending out a statement of benefits to the employees where a lot of times we look at salary and they're trying to remind everybody of just what all is paid or encumbered by the county on their behalf. Elections, the election budget has increased $2,518. This does not include a second primary. And right now, I'm not sure if there is a second primary. Is that, I'm not sure, so we've got it covered if it does. If needed, these funds will come from contingency. Capital reserve, we're budgeting our annual set aside of $450,000 for capital reserve. Personnel, the number of permanent employees at the time of last year's budget message was 553. During the year, the BOC added 6 paramedics and 1 intern for environmental health, now 560. We have received requests to add the following positions: 1 part-time position for DSS converted to full-time, 1 juvenile officer for the sheriff's office, 2 deputies, 4 telecommunicators, 1 training officer for telecommunications, 1 assistant EMS chief, and 1 training officer for EMS. We propose to add the following positions: convert the part-time DSS employee to full-time, 1 juvenile officer for the sheriff's department, 4 telecommunicators to be employed as of January 2023, which means we're holding back a half year if you approve that, and 1 assistant EMS chief. If all positions are approved, we will have 567 full-time employees at the end of the year. Solid waste, their budget is increased to $162,000, and the result is the cost of inflation per the contract. GIS, we're working diligently in that area, but we're still proposing to continue our contract with Rivers and Ravenel. IT audit, that's something we've been talking about with the things we have going on. That has not been accomplished. We still would like to come back and get that during the next year. So let me drink one more sip of water, and I will go to the end. At the March Economic Development Breakfast event, economist Dr. Michael Walden shared with us that inflation for 2021 was 7.5%. He went on to explain that the money supply had increased 85% during the 2 years of COVID. Thus, we have too much money chasing too few goods. The first few months of this year suggest that the annual rate of inflation projected to an annual percentage will likely be higher than 7.5%. Supply chain issues have occurred to some extent over the last 2 years. However, these issues have been exacerbated by the money supply. It does appear that some improvements are occurring in the supply chain. However, it will take some time of work for all of this. And David and I will share this with you. We have worked on the budget for, I don't know, since sometime in March. And sometimes watching the news, the view of some of this stuff begins to change and get better and then get worse. So at some point in time, it's almost a drop of the hat as to where you decide you are and how you're going to proceed forward. Dr. Walden also pointed out that the population of North Carolina is projected to be 13 million people by 2050. Because Sampson County is strategically located between the Triangle and Wilmington, we continue to believe that the future of Sampson County is bright regardless of the bumps in the roads caused by the pandemic. Likewise, we continue to believe that the investment in attention to economic development is as important now as it was in the days before the pandemic. As you begin to evaluate the information herein, please note that education represents 30.81% of the county's tax support. Public safety represents 29.82%. General government represents 14.7%, and human services 13.48% of the county's tax support. If the board chooses to redefine government by reducing services, it will be challenging to accomplish without closely reviewing the larger departments' groups receiving significant tax support. We understand that everyone prefers not to have a tax increase. Heretofore, we can make some positive assumptions regarding circumstances in the short term. We cannot do this year under current circumstances. We also note that the general fund will likely reflect a decline this year because of needed additional expenditures that were approved during the budget year. We also recognize that inflation and supply chain will continue to have an impact that completely and accurately estimate. I'll also interject here, relative to some of the adjustments we've made in budgets, we are beginning to have some discussions amongst ourselves whether maybe we have pared back some of the fuel and oil expenditures too much. So that's kind of on us. Therefore, we sincerely and professionally believe that the proposed 5-cent tax increase is the appropriate action for the long-term physical health of Sampson County and many important programs and partners. I am delighted to work in a county where the Board of Commissioners places high value on all departments and employees. The end result is a higher quality of overall services for all citizens in the county, and I thank you very much. Questions or comments?
One number you didn't give us was the Department of Social Services, what their total budget was.
I do not have that in my notes. If you,
Their total budget is, including their, what's funded through grants and everything, is about $16.1 million.
Our share is 16.1?
No, that's their total budget. Our share is around $6 million.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I will offer you that based on authorization from the board previously, we are in the process or have advertised a public hearing on the budget for the June 6th meeting. So that has been taken care of. And then it's at your discretion as to whether the board wants to meet to start budget deliberations prior to the public hearing, or do you just want to wait till the public hearing? That is a decision that you all can make.
I think, just my opinion, but I would like us to wait till the public hearing and then schedule at least 1 or 2 work sessions to see what we need to do here. How do y'all feel about that? We want to go ahead and schedule them now while we've got our calendars not full. Y'all good with that? And that's just my opinion. What do y'all, is that good for y'all?
I think we need to discuss it for sure.
Is it fine for you to wait till after our public hearing?
I'm fine with that. get some input.
Madam Chairperson, while everyone's looking at their calendars, the budget is now available on our website. It was posted about the time Mr. Causey started talking. So it is
Okay, so-
available for,
Do we have a preference on what time of day? Morning sounds good.
Always
Y'all okay with
work
that?
out for me.
What day did it say?
Do we want to look at the week of June, maybe the 8th or the 9th, that Wednesday or Thursday, the week after the public hearing?
I'm good.
Want to do 10? Or is that too late? 10's good, okay. Clark?
And you're talking about the 8th of June?
Uh-huh, or 9th,
Yeah, that could be a lot better for me.
the 9th, okay. The 9th at 10 o'clock, is that good? Do we, let's go ahead and plan a second one. We might be able to handle it in this first one, but let's plan a second one just in case. The next week, maybe the 14th, 13th, 14th,
I can't make the 14th.
okay.
That's a Tuesday.
We've got Board of E&R the 15th, maybe the 16th.
we do?
Okay, 13th or 16th.
Either one.
Morning is good.
Okay.
Almost this morning, I'm good there.
Either of those days, 13th or 16th.
16th would be better.
16th, okay.
Same.
And that's just to have it on our calendars in case we need the second one. Okay, the 9th and the 16th at 10. Okay, do we,
And I would say meet in the conference room in the administration building.
okay. What a morning. Thank you for all of your hard work. I really appreciate it. I'm sure this is not what you wanted to share with us, but it is what it is, but we have a lot of work to do. Do we recess to reconvene, or do we just,
No, ma'am, you would just adjourn this meeting because you have your regular meeting already scheduled.
I move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Mhm.